Hi, in this video we will be discussing about the Transfer of Property Act 1882. We'll start with the first unit, which is Meaning and Concept of Property. Meaning and Concept of Property, Section 3. We need not remember the section numbers, so you don't have to worry about it. Just remember the concept and try to understand it properly. The law can be divided into three branches. What are those three branches? The law of property, the law of obligations, and the law of status. The law can be divided into three categories. The first one is law of property, the second one is law of obligations, and third one is law of status. Law of property. The law of property deals with proprietary rights in rem. Rem means world. The law of property deals with proprietary rights. Proprietary rights in rem. Rem means world. I'll explain everything in detail. The law of property deals with the proprietary rights in rem. Example, A is the rightful owner of X, a house. Suppose Mr. A has a house and A is the rightful owner of the house. Then entire world is obliged to recognize his right over that house. Then the entire world will recognize that yes, A is the owner of that house. The state owes duty to protect his proprietary rights. The world should recognize that yes, A is the legal owner, and the state means the government should protect A's right over his house. So the law of property, I repeat, it deals with the proprietary rights in rem, means world. So A's proprietary rights are of his house, and these proprietary rights in rem means against the world. So the world should recognize A's right over the house. That's what it means. It deals with the proprietary rights in rem. A is the rightful owner of a house. So the world should recognize that A is the rightful owner, and state should protect A's right over that house. That's it. Now we'll come to the law of obligations. Law of obligations deals with proprietary rights in personam. Here we talked about proprietary rights in rem. Here we'll talk about proprietary rights in personam. Personam. For personam we'll discuss again later. It comes as we move ahead in the syllabus. The third one is the law of status. It deals with personal or non-proprietary rights, whether in rem or in personam. So the status deals with, law of status deals with two things. What are the two things? It deals with personal as well as non-proprietary rights. Personal rights itself mean that these are non-proprietary rights. Non-proprietary rights. It deals with personal non-proprietary rights, and this can be in rem or personam. So to summarize, we are talking about the Transfer of Property Act 1882, and the Transfer of Property Act 1882 is divided into three. The law is divided into three kinds: the law of property, the law of obligations, and the law of status. Law of property deals with proprietary rights in rem. Rem means world. Suppose A is the legal owner or the rightful owner of a house, then his right is against the entire world, and the entire world should accept it. If there is any issue, then the state will come and protect A's right over that house. Then the law of obligations, it talks about the proprietary rights in personam. Here we are talking about proprietary rights in rem, and here we are talking about proprietary rights in personam. Then the third one is the law of status. It talks about the personal rights or non-proprietary rights, and the non-proprietary rights can be in rem or in personam. Now we'll go to a few definitions. We are talking about the Transfer of Property Act. So let us first understand what is the meaning of property. Meaning of property. The term property includes all legal rights of the owner of that property. In our example, A was the owner of a house property. So the term property includes all legal rights of the owner, that is A, of that property. So whatever legal rights that A has over this property definition includes those legal rights. And the law recognizes that yes, A is the owner having the possession and enjoyment of that property. A has the possession also, the property house is with A, and he enjoys the property also. The law also recognizes that. So what is the meaning of property? Property means the legal rights that A has over the property, and even the law accepts it. Simple. Now we'll talk about the kinds of property. We'll discuss about the kinds. There are basically two kinds of property. The first one is jura in re propria. It's difficult, it's like a tongue twister, but if you practice it once or twice, you'll get it. Jura in re propria. Repropria. Jura in re propria. I'll write the spelling here. Jura in re propria. Jura in re propria. And the second one is jura in re aliena. I'll write the spelling of this also. Jura in re aliena. Jura in re propria is again divided into two. Please note down while we are discussing this. It will be a summary note for you. No matter from whichever book you are reading, this will be the concept and this will be like a summary for you. So kindly note down. Jura in re propria is divided into two: material things and immaterial things. Material things and immaterial things. Material things means what? This is very obvious, like land, buildings, etc. are material things. Then chattels. Chattels. What is the meaning of chattels? Chattels is nothing but anything except real estate. Real estate includes land, buildings, etc. So instead of writing here land, material means land, etc., they are writing land. If they write land, etc., it means people might understand and interpret it as they might include things which are intangible like patents and all also. So what they have done, they have written land and they have written chattels. Chattels means what? Anything tangible. Tangible means material. Okay. So anything tangible or material except land is chattels. So what are material things? There are two: land and except land, and that is chattels. These two together are called, ultimately these two are material things, and these two are called corporeal property. So this is corporeal property. Corporeal property. And it's obvious also. See, the word here is real. These are material things. So these are real. That's why corporeal property. Now we come to the second kind. That is jura in re aliena. Jura in re aliena is of one type. No, just a second, we are missing something here. Jura in re propria, we have discussed about the material thing. Now we'll discuss about the immaterial things. Immaterial things means what? Patents, copyrights, trademarks, etc. So these are obviously the immaterial things. And the second kind of property is jura in re aliena. Jura in re aliena. This includes leases, securities, etc. So let me summarize this. Kinds of property. There are two kinds of property: jura in re propria and jura in re aliena. Jura in re propria is divided into two: material and immaterial. Material means land, and chattels. Chattel means anything, any tangible asset except land, whether movable or immovable, doesn't matter. So these material things will be called what? Corporeal property, because these are the real properties. And the second part is immaterial. Immaterial means what? Patents, copyrights, trademarks, etc., etc. And jura in re aliena means leases, securities, etc. And these are also immaterial. So these are together called, obviously these will not be called corporeal property because these are not real. These will be called incorporeal property. Incorporeal property. So let us do a recap of this. We are discussing the Transfer of Property Act 1882. The law is divided into three: the law of property, the law of obligations, and the law of status. The law of property deals with the proprietary rights in rem. In our example we took, suppose A is the legal owner of a house. So A will have the proprietary rights in rem, and the world must accept his right over that house. What will the state do? The state will protect A's right over that house. Then we discussed about the law of obligations, which deals with the proprietary rights in personam. Just a second. Yeah. And the third one which we discussed about is the law of status, which deals with personal rights or non-proprietary rights. So I think it is necessary for me to explain to you what is the difference between proprietary rights and non-proprietary rights or the personal rights, right? So proprietary rights mean a person's estate or property, and personal rights mean A person's liberty, his reputation, his name, his goodwill, etc. So proprietary rights, which we are talking in these two categories, proprietary rights, these include a person's estate, a person's shares, debts, debentures, etc., etc. A person's whatever it is. Okay. And the personal right includes that person's reputation, his liberty, his freedom, etc. So in our example, if you say the right which A has over the house is his proprietary right, but the right which A has for himself, that is A's liberty, A's we can say A's reputation, these are his personal rights. So the law of status deals with the personal rights, A's reputation, A's liberty, A's freedom, etc. And this can be in person, that is in personam, or in rem. So the Transfer of Property Act 1882, the Transfer of Property Act 1882, we divide it into three: the law of property, the law of obligation, and the law of status. The law of property deals with the property rights in rem. The law of obligations deals with the proprietary rights in personam. The law of status deals with the personal or the non-proprietary rights in rem or in personam. Then we discussed the definition of legal, the property, and property includes all legal rights of the owner of that property, and the law recognizes his rights. Then we talked about the kinds of property. Kinds of property are into two: jura in re propria and jura in re aliena. Jura in re propria is divided into two: material and immaterial. As the name suggests, material includes land, chattels, and these are corporeal property. Immaterial includes patents, copyrights, trademarks, etc. Then jura in re aliena talks about leases, securities, etc. And ultimately what we know is whether it is jura in re aliena or jura in re propria immaterial, these are the immaterial properties, and that's why these are called incorporeal properties. This is what we have discussed till now. Let's go ahead. Another classification of property. We said jura in re propria and jura in re aliena are the two classifications of properties. Are the two kinds of property. We are now talking about the two classifications of the properties also. What are the two classifications? The property can be a private property, or the property can be a public property. Okay, so let's talk about the private property. According to the capitalist theory, which theory? Capitalist theory. Any person can acquire the property and the rights over such property depending upon his knowledge, experience, hard work, and the time. So it says any person. So the capitalist theory says that any person can acquire the property. So suppose a person is there, he can acquire a house or a commercial building, or he can acquire land. So any person A can acquire any property, and the rights over such properties. Any person can acquire the property and even the rights over such property depending upon his knowledge, A's knowledge. Out of A's experience, out of A's knowledge, he can acquire any property. In this theory, a few people grow rich and richer, and at the same time, majority of the population remains poor. The properties are enjoyed by the rich people only. In almost all democratic countries, the capitalist theory has been followed, example USA, UK, Japan, etc. So what is capitalist theory? What is capitalist theory? So capitalist theory is a person out of his knowledge and experience can acquire any property and the legal rights for it. And the main disadvantage of this theory is that the rich will grow richer and richer, and the poor people will remain poor. Now we'll talk about the socialist theory for the private property. The socialist theory says that entire property in a state belongs to the state only. Whatever property we have, the land, the buildings, etc., all these properties belong to the state, the government. People have no right over the individual properties. People do not have any rights over the individual properties. So let me just repeat this. The other two classifications of property are the private property and the public property. In private property, we talked about two theories. One is the capitalist theory and the other one is the socialist theory. According to capitalist theory, individual persons can, out of his or their own experience, can acquire any property, whether building, land, or shop or house, whatever it is. So out of their own experience, they can buy those properties and the legal rights for those. But the main disadvantage of this theory, capitalist theory, is that the rich will become richer and the poor will remain poor. There is one more theory for the private property, which is socialist theory. This says that the properties cannot be owned by individual people, individual persons. The entire property, whether the land, the buildings, the shops, the houses, everything, belong to the ownership of the state. There are no individual ownerships. Now let's talk about, suppose there is a private property and the state acquires it. There is a private property and the state acquires it. Then how? So acquisition of private properties. If the state acquires the private properties for public purpose, it can acquire the private properties by paying compensation under the Land Acquisition Act. This is a very common point that we are discussing now. You might have seen in your real life also. Suppose you have your house and there is a very small lane just beside your house. So the government wants to expand the lane and make it a main road or a bigger road. What can the government do? It writes on the wall. The municipal department comes and writes on the wall 7 feet inside, 10 feet, 20 feet, 12 feet, whatever it is. So what does that mean? They will be demolishing that much feet and acquiring the space from your house, and they will lay a road on that. This is as good as you are making a sale to the government. You are making the 7 feet part of your house, that 7 feet of your house which belongs to you is being sold by you to the government. So obviously the government has to pay a compensation for it. It's like a normal sale. If you're selling your property to somebody, he has to pay you money. Here the government is acquiring that 7 feet portion from you. So whatever is the rate, the government acquires that property after paying the compensation and then lays a road on it. So that is the acquisition of the private properties. If the state acquires the private properties for public purpose, that is laying of road, it can acquire the private properties by paying compensation under the Land Acquisition Act. Now we'll talk about the public property. What is public property? Public property means state's property for public purpose. Example, railways, railway station, railway lines, roads, bridges, RTC, depots, bus stands, buses. Everything is public property. In India, all the forest lands are also owned by state. What is public property? The properties which are owned by the government. Properties are owned by government. Now, in this case, we are talking about private property being converted into public property by acquisition, and the government pays compensation. Now, in this case, we'll talk about what? We'll talk about the public property becoming private. So, what is the point here? Privatization of public properties. In certain occasions, the state is empowered to privatize the public properties. There are some cases where the state or the government makes the public property private. That's it. So let me do a quick recap of the entire thing that we have discussed now, and the other parts of the same subject, that is the law of property, that is the Transfer Property Act 1988. I will be discussing. I'm sorry, 1982. I will be discussing this in the videos which I'll be uploading soon. So let's do a quick recap of the entire thing, whatever we have studied now. Why do we do so many times recap? Because if we revise it multiple times, it will be very easy for us to remember it. If I don't revise it multiple times, then it's obviously that we'll forget it. So let's do the recap now. The Transfer of Property Act 1882, there are three laws: law of property, law of obligations, and the law of status. Okay. Law of property deals with the proprietary rights. What is the meaning of proprietary rights and what is the meaning of personal rights? Proprietary rights means my estate, my buildings, my land, my shares, whatever belongs to me are proprietary rights, and whatever belongs or which are directly related to me, like my reputation, my name, my goodwill, my freedom, my independence, my liberty, these are personal rights. So proprietary, the law of property deals with the proprietary rights in rem. Rem means against the world. For an example, we have taken that suppose A is the rightful owner of a house property. All the legal rights of the house property belong to A. Then A is said to be having proprietary rights of that house property in rem. This means that the entire world has to recognize A's right over that house property. And in case anybody makes any issue, then the state comes into the picture and protects A's right over that property. Then we discussed about the law of obligations, which deals with the proprietary rights in personam. Then the third one is the law of status, which deals with personal rights. These are non-proprietary rights, a person's reputation, goodwill, etc. Then we said, what is the meaning of property? Property includes all the legal rights of the owner of that property, and law recognizes it. Then we talked about the kinds of property. The kinds of property are two: jura in re propria and jura in re aliena. Jura in re propria is again divided into two: material and immaterial. Material, as the name suggests, it is tangible properties. So material means land and chattels. Chattels means what? All the tangible properties except land. And these are tangible. So we'll call, there is another name for it. What is that name? Corporeal property. Then immaterial properties. Immaterial means patents, copyrights, trademarks. Then the second kind of property is jura in re aliena. Jura in re aliena is leases, securities, etc. And these are jura in re aliena and the jura in re propria. Immaterial category is also falls under, both are ultimately immaterial. These are not real. So these are incorporeal properties. Then the other two classifications are what? Private property and public property. Private property, we have talked about two theories. What are the two theories? Capitalist theory and socialist theory. Capitalist theory means what? Any person can own any property and the legal rights of that property. But there is a main disadvantage of this. What is that disadvantage? That the rich will become richer and the poor will remain poor. There is another theory for the private property. What is the socialist theory? Socialist theory says that all the properties do not belong to the individual persons. The entire property belongs to the state, the government. Then we talked about the public property. Before talking about the public property, we talked about the conversion of private property into public property. And that example we have taken of land acquisition, where the government pays compensation to the citizens before acquiring their land for public purposes. Then we talked about the public property. Public property means what? The property is owned by the government. The railways, buses, bridges, flyovers, metro rail, etc., etc. These properties are owned by the government, and thus these are called public properties. Here we talked about the conversion of private property into public properties, and here we'll talk about conversion of public property into private property. And we said that the government in some cases sometimes converts public property into private property. That's it for this video. I'll be uploading the other concepts of the same act soon. Thank you so much. I hope you like this. Whatever suggestions you have, you can contact me or WhatsApp me better. That's better if you can WhatsApp me on this number 880-1919-249 or email me cavivek68@gmail.com. Hope you like it. Please forward your suggestions. My name is Vivek Nahadia. I'm a chartered accountant and company secretary. I'm now pursuing LLB. Thank you so much.